So if you look at our latest statistics, there are about 7 million cash ISA accounts in the UK, and in total, there's £31 billion saved inside of them. Sounds pretty impressive, and that's an average of £7,750 in each account. Now, this is going to sound a little bit weird to a lot of you, but I do think that cash ISAs might be a waste of money, or at least not used in the right way, but let me kind of explain before people start having a go at me in the comments section. So a cash ISA is one of your ISA accounts that you can use here in the UK, and across all of your ISA accounts, you can put in up to £20,000 per tax year. This means that every adult in the UK can save or invest up to £20,000 a year completely tax-free, which is great. I've gone into detail on other videos explaining ISAs, especially the likes of the Stocks and Shares ISA, so I won't cover the basics here, but safe to say, these accounts are amazing if you want to help grow your money. Now, with a cash ISA, your money is fully protected up to the value of £85,000 by the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, and it's going to get a guaranteed rate of interest, which will depend on which provider you choose. For example, right now, if you take a look at the market, you can see that lots of accounts are offering around 5% a year on any money inside of them. This is way higher than it's been for a long time, and this would mean that if you had £10,000 saved in a cash ISA and got 5% on that money, you'd make £500 a year in interest. So far, so good then. Tax-free interest on your savings, and you can do this with virtually no risk at all, as it's not like investing where you risk losing your money. However, here's where the first catch comes in. Now, we all love tax-free savings or tax-free investing, and it's something I spend a lot of time talking about on my channel. But let's not also forget that to get tax-free savings, you don't have to use a cash ISA. Every adult in the UK has a savings allowance, which is the amount of money that you're allowed to make in interest without paying a single penny in tax. Now, this tax-free savings allowance is reset every single tax year, and it currently looks like this. If you're a basic rate taxpayer, meaning that you earn less than £50,270 a year, you have £1,000 a year savings allowance. If you earn more than that and you're a higher rate taxpayer, you get £500 a year instead of £1,000, and so on up to the additional rate taxpayers. Remember that a higher rate taxpayer is anyone earning between £50,270 and £125,140. Up to that point, these allowances cover 97% of people, as only a very small number of people earn more than that and will not get any allowance at all. So with that point covered, let's just run a couple of examples which should explain why I think a cash ISA might not be the best account to use. Remember though, I'm not a financial advisor, I don't claim to be any kind of guru, so please do check everything and always do what's right for you. Okay, say you've got lots of money that you want to save and earn some interest on. Nice problem to have. And let's say that you're a basic rate taxpayer, which covers about 85% of earners in the UK. If you find a savings account that pays 5% interest a year and you put in any amount up to £20,000, you won't have to pay anything on your cash interest, regardless of whether you use a cash ISA or not. This is because 5% of £20,000 is £1,000, and that amount is exactly what you're allowed to earn in interest before paying any tax. And going back to the statistics at the beginning, if you have an average size cash ISA right now, which has £7,750 inside of it, then there's no difference to the tax payable using a cash ISA or just a normal savings account. Both accounts would have no taxes to pay at all, as the ISA is just tax-free by default, and then the savings interest in the regular account isn't large enough to go beyond what you're allowed to earn. As you might guess, if we run another example and say that you had a lot more to save, say you had money there for a house deposit, then yes, it would make sense to try and protect that money from tax where you can. However, in any one tax year, the most you can put into a cash ISA would be £20,000 anyway. So it would take you a few years worth of contributions to start to really make the most of that tax-free account like an ISA. And it would completely use up all of your ISA allowances. This would mean that you would not be able to use any other types of ISA accounts, and I think this is probably one of the biggest issues, as ISA accounts are so powerful, but they're not all created equal. For example, a cash ISA has limited potential, and this is because the best result you can get is that interest rate. You get your 5% at the moment, nothing less and nothing more, because there's so little risk to you. But compare that to something like a Stocks and Shares ISA, where there is a lot more risk, but the returns aren't limited. And in any given year, you could see a result like we did last year in the stock market with almost a 20% gain for global stocks. Now, obviously, you can lose money with investing as well, especially in the short term. I'm not for 1 second suggesting that you suddenly stop saving money and invest everything. The point I wanted to make, though, was that if you are saving for the long run, you might be blocking up your ISA allowance if you decide to use a cash ISA, when you might be better off just having cash in a regular savings account. If I quickly run the numbers, and let's say that you were saving for 10 years and putting away £200 a month, and you did manage to get 5% a year in interest every single year, at the end of 10 years, you'd have £31,200. If you managed to invest it instead and got a long-term interest rate of about average 10%, you would have £40,500. Now that's a huge difference, as you can see. There's no guarantees with investing ever, as I have said, but I'd not want to ever use savings as a long-term builder of wealth. Personally, for me, I think trying to make the most of your ISA allowances for investments is much better than saving. Also, one thing worth adding here is that savings rates can sometimes actually be better outside of a cash ISA. If you just go onto something like Money Saving Expert and check the best rates on cash ISAs and compare that to the best savings rates in normal accounts, you'll see that there are better offers available in normal accounts. It might not be a huge difference, but it is there, and it's because an ISA account does need a bit more administration from the providers, so they do need to pass on those costs. However, it's worth saying that if you do want a cash ISA provider with one of the best rates, it might be worth checking out Trading 212, who have just opened their cash ISA accounts, as you can see now. I've got that notification through on my own app. Now you can find it if you have the app updated to the latest version and you swipe across to the top, you can see the cash ISA section. Also, if you are new to them, don't forget there's a free share up for grabs if you use my link in the description, which is where I keep all of the best offers to the platforms and apps that I use personally. Anyway, hopefully that's covered the point and made you think about how to best use a cash ISA or not, depending on your own needs. I think really this comes down to trying to be as strategic as possible, especially if you have enough money to get close to maxing out your ISA accounts this year or any future tax years. Here's a bit of a bonus tip before we move on to another point. If you do have a lot of cash, but you don't want to use up your ISA allowances because you're trying to save that for investing, then one thing you could consider is premium bonds. Now, this isn't a savings account and there are no guarantees with interest rates here, but it is fully insured, backed by the UK government, and you can take money out at any time. Also, the maximum you can put in per person is £50,000, so per couple potentially, it's a pretty big sum of money if you max it out to £100,000. And the best thing about it has to be the fact that any prize winnings are tax-free. Like I said though, please just make sure that you realise that premium bonds aren't guaranteed to give you any returns. I just wanted to give you an option, as this did come up in a one-to-one call I had the other day, and I think it could work out for some people. Okay, so you might think that after covering all of these negative points, I somehow think cash ISAs are really bad, and that's just not true at all. The most important thing I wanted to get across in this video was to let you know that you do have a choice and you do have allowances for savings interest. I guarantee that lots of people out there never even knew you could get interest on savings up to £1,000 per person without an ISA. However, with that said, let me just explain when I think they could be good, as I do like to try and cover the whole story and get into the details, even if most people won't even make it this far. Now, if you have, don't forget to make sure that you are subscribed and hit the like button for me. It does really help out small channels like mine. Okay, on the positive side, I do think using a cash ISA has many other certain benefits that might not be completely obvious. Firstly, remember that your ISA allowances are only given once per tax year, and if you don't use them up, then you do lose them. You can't carry forward your ISA allowances, so if you're sitting on the sidelines with a lot of money, don't forget to do this, especially if you're in between tax years. Now, with that being the case, once money is inside an ISA, you can transfer it between different kinds of ISAs, and this doesn't affect your current tax year's allowance. Now, this could be useful because let's say that you did have a lot of money sat inside a cash ISA, but you've realized that you might be better off kind of investing that for the long run instead. You can move that money into a stocks and shares ISA. Now, if you had all of your savings outside of an ISA, then you wouldn't be able to do this. So I do think that this is a positive thing and gives you a few more options. Also, on a non-financial note, I think that using a cash ISA, or any kind of ISA for that matter, is an overall positive thing, as clearly you're thinking about being tax efficient. Now, one of the best things we have as UK investors and savers are these ISA accounts, and you will be amazed just how many people have no idea that they exist and exactly how to use them in the first place. So just by the fact that you are using them means that you are on the right path. Now, I could also argue that if you were a higher rate taxpayer and you had no allowance at all for your savings, then using a cash ISA would be one of the only ways you could save without paying any tax on your interest. You could also use premium bonds too, don't forget, but then I think most people earning that kind of money aren't the ones using cash ISAs anyway. They prefer to focus their income on things with a higher long-term returns, like investments in a stocks and shares ISA, for example. On a final point, just as another bonus point while I remember it, don't forget that although you do get £1,000 as a basic rate taxpayer for your savings allowance, you can actually get up to £5,000 a year as an allowance, which is called the starting rate. But this only applies if you earn below the income tax threshold. Now, we only mention this in case you might be young, living at home with a part-time job, but you have some savings somehow. You can check all of those details anyway on the government website here on this page, which covers all those details. Anyway, I hope that's helped clear things up. Personally, for me, I don't use a cash ISA as I prefer to maximize my stocks and shares ISA, but I do keep my emergency fund cash inside my Trading 212 general trading account, and I get 5.2% interest on it, which is paid daily. Now, even though it's not tax protected and the interest is nowhere near my allowance, this works absolutely fine for me. But let me know what you think in the comments below, and I wonder if you agree that the cash ISA is potentially a waste of money for some people. I'll see you in the next video. Happy investing.